Introduction. A world-renowned neurosurgeon, Dr. Braveheart, helps his best friend, who is half alien and a gynecologist, Dr. Mark Ryan, translates an alien radio frequency and gets home. Their journey starts after Dr. Braveheart is infected with syphilis bacteria, which he got from his girlfriend, who contracted it from Dr. Braveheart's best friend, Dr. Mark Ryan. The syphilis bacteria caused a bridge between the pineal gland and temporal region in Dr. Braveheart's brain, which gave him the ability to receive the alien's frequency and translate it into a coordinate. In their quest, they journey to a secret area called Area 52, where they found two new friends to help them along their journey. They formed a team and called Save the Gynecologist. On their journey, they learned how Dr. Mark Ryan predecessors came to Earth to research human sex organ secretions. The initial plan was to enslave the human race by sucking their sex organ fluid and transport it back to their planet. They learned that Dr. Mark Ryan is from an alien race that depends on sex organ secretions for developing their language center in their brains. Dr. Braveheart found love and got married. They also made an enemy. His name is General Harry, who shot Dr. Mark Ryan in the chest and caused him to develop a tension pneumothorax. Did Dr. Mark Ryan survive? What is Area 52? Why Dr. Braveheart was able to translate the alien frequency. The origin of gynecology? Find out in Save the Gynecologist. Preface.
Do you not feel so well when you get up and when? This morning, you know when you feel tired, me whenever tired, me tired or what?
Anything else?
That's a number one.
You were worried about the pressure?
I love practicing medicine, and I also love writing books. If you ask me to choose between the two, you might as well ask me to choose between eating and having sex. During my years of medical school, I watched numerous pornography movies. It wasn't my intention, but because where I lived, the only video rental store in the city carried only pornography. I watched movies such as Taboo 1 to Taboo 18, American Style Taboo, and numerous other vintage classics. I never thought I was falling in love with writing erotica and pornography. If I have to choose a genre, it will be pornography. So, it works out for me and you. For I get to write what I love, and you get to read what I love writing. I have a strong medical background, and I mix medicine with my stories, so that readers can learn a little bit of medicine while reading. After a hard day of work, I noticed my mind focus of stories a lot. I find myself on a daily basis thinking about stories of romances, strong sexuality, adventures, and self-motivation. I tried to abandon these daydreams, but they sneaked up on me some unusual times. I decided to focus these daydream books. I created...
You should take all those pressure pills nevertheless.
Okay, so... Because me just feel like me head heavy.
Medical
and
doctor.
That,
Chapter number 1.
I did eat something hot, and me throat like it get a little burn. Yeah. You said Jesus.
Dr. Braveheart's Sexcription Clinic.
Everything else is open.
Why a man who comes out of vagina will try his whole life to get back into one. The vagina is one of the great wonders created by God. Its look is breathtaking. Its smell is euphoric. Its taste is a delicacy. Many men tried to... They are everlasting. Dr. Braveheart thought to himself as he rocked back and forth in his wheeled leather chair, which was fully snuggled with him inside, and under his executive desk in his office. It was early Saturday morning. Dr. Braveheart sat in his office and awaits his meetings for the day. His office was housed in his $100 million mansion. His mansion was located in the Tar Heel state. It was 120,000 square feet mansion on a 350,000 square feet land. The mansion was designed by Dr. Braveheart. It was 2 stories tall with a basement. The second floor houses 10 bedrooms with self-containing washroom, each named after the first 10 books in the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1 Samuel, and 2 Samuel. When the upstairs was
Okay,
viewed
you
from the
said I
top
should
of
do
the
the
bifurcated
electricity last time.
staircases, it was rectangular shaped with a central main
So I should
corridor.
go back and do
Each
that.
bedroom was walled with marble and the bed frames were gold. Their walls were decorated with pictures painted by famous artists, except for Dr. Braveheart's bedroom, which is decorated with pictures of vagina. Their showers were designed like waterfall from the ceiling and their basins were gold. Each bedroom has an opening to its own veranda. Dr. Braveheart slept in Genesis' room. The first floor housed the living room, kitchen, entertainment room, garage, smoke room, and an indoor garden. Picture showing Dr. Braveheart's bedroom, which is decorated with pictures of female vagina.
Okay, what's the
In his
supposed to
mansion
be?
living room was a floor door that opened into the mansion's basement. The centerpiece of the living room was a huge L-shaped couch facing a large flat-screen television. The couch was facing away from the bifurcated staircases.
Oh, you never write it
Picture
yet, now
showing
you have to
Dr.
write it.
Braveheart Mansion living room and the floor door that leads to the basement. In the basement
So
of
you said
Dr.
it's on the
Braveheart's
borderline,
mansion
that
was
means
where the
the pressure
magic
high.
happened. The basement was a clinic for the sick at heart and broken souls. A clinic for women who needed a release of sexual chemical without emotional complications. Here they came for treatment of illnesses that which couldn't be treated at their homes. When a man frustrates a woman and she needed a room with a man hanging from the ceiling to beat, fuck, or to perform any sexual or brutal act, Dr. Braveheart's clinic was where they came. Braveheart's clinic was named Dr. Braveheart's Sexscription Clinic. His clinic was open to all women between the ages of 21 to 35, but only with a referral from a current patient. Patients would come from all walks of life, movie stars, princesses, wives, and the occasional lesbians for the one purpose, and that was to release sexual frustration. The only means of getting to his mansion are by air and a private dam. The private dam connects his mansion to the highway, and it is tucked and hidden away from public eyes. The hidden entrance to his mansion were used by Dr. Braveheart, his family, and clinic staffs. Today, the first day of the month and of the new year, the clinic was booked full. I guess women are stressed after spending New Year's alone, thought Dr. Braveheart as he rocked back and forth in his wheeled leather chair. Dr. Braveheart's Sexscription Clinic was 2 office rooms, a waiting room, a nurse's quarter, a receptionist area, a delivery area, and a pharmacy that sold drugs along with female sex toys. The clinic was staffed with 2 nurses, 1 receptionist, a pharmacist, Dr. Braveheart, and Dr. Braveheart's best friend, Dr. Mark Ryan. The main entrance to the clinic was through the living room floor door, and then down a staircase that led into the clinic waiting area. When Dr. Braveheart's Sexscription Clinic was viewed from the main entrance staircase, it was rectangular shaped with a central corridor about 3 feet wide. At the back of the corridor and on the left-hand side was Dr. Mark Ryan's office, and immediately opposite on the right-hand side was Dr. Braveheart's office. A budding doctor. Mark Ryan's office was the receptionist area, and a budding Dr. Braveheart's office was the waiting area. The nurses share part of receptionist area. The waiting area housed the staircase that led to the mansion living room. Guests of the clinic would arrive by helicopter and either entered the clinic through the living room or through the delivery area in the back of the clinic. The waiting area seated 10 guests at one time and connected to the corridor which parted the basement into 2. The corridor ended into the delivery area, which was connected to an elevator that led to the helicopter pad on the roof. Each office was walled with concrete and contained multiple sex toys, a soft mattress on a bed frame with a large canopy, or in the case of Dr. Mark Ryan's office, a gynecologist bed, an office desk, a round and flat table with multiple knives, and a washroom. Decorating the walls were pictures of different sex positions. Pictures showing Dr. Braveheart sitting in his office behind his executive desk and in his wheeled leather chair. There was a knock on Dr. Braveheart's office door. "Come in," answered Dr. Braveheart. Dr. Braveheart's office door doorknob turned and his receptionist entered. "Good morning, Dr. Braveheart." Ms. Rihanna greeted Dr. Braveheart. "How are you doing?" asked Dr. Braveheart. "I am stress-free today," replied Ms. Rihanna. "Because of your subscription, I am stress-free." Thank you very much.
First, take this.
You are welcome, said Dr. Braveheart. Ms. Rihanna is one of Dr. Braveheart's frequent client and also worked at the clinic as a receptionist every first Monday of every month. Every second Monday of every month worked Ms. Selena, and every third and fourth Mondays of every month worked Ms. Olson and Ms. Stone respectively. Ms. Rihanna came to Dr. Braveheart's subscription clinic at a young age. She was in her early 20s when she became a famous singer and fell in love with a male singer who would beat the shit out of her occasionally and raped her frequently. She lost all control over her love life and wanted a fresh start. She was tired of the beating and rapping she occasionally received from her boyfriend and decided to seek Dr. Braveheart for help. Around February, you would have heard on the news about a famous singer who got beaten by a male singer. What wasn't reported was how the female singer gave the male singer gonorrhea. The story of the gonorrhea was earlier in the month of February. Ms. Rihanna came to the clinic with a referral from Selena, who was a current patient. Ms. Rihanna was seeking revenge for all the whopping she took from her boyfriend and sorted Dr. Braveheart for help. Dr. Braveheart set her up with the perfect revenge code named Piss Fire. Piss Fire involved Rihanna get her vagina screwed by a carrier of gonorrhea. The carrier of gonorrhea was Dr. Braveheart. After she contracted the gonorrhea from screwing Dr. Braveheart, she will carry the STI and gave it to her abusive boyfriend. In early February, the plan was executed perfectly. Dr. Braveheart screwed Rihanna and gave her gonorrhea. She carried the STI to her abusive boyfriend and came back for the injection of cefuroxime 250 milligrams intramuscularly and azithromycin 1 grams orally stat. When her boyfriend realized he contracted a sexual transmitted infection, his urethra was already stricture. It was too late for him. His urination was the feeling of fire, and in the morning a milky yellow discharge from his urethra opening. He wore a urinary catheter to help him pass urine for the period of the infection. The beating she received when her abusive boyfriend found out about his STI was a small price for the pain and humiliation he had gone through. She was satisfied with the service doctor. Braveheart's subscription clinic provided, and ever since then, Ms. Rihanna had volunteered her time every first Monday of the month to the clinic. Dr. Mark Ryan is here to see you, replied Ms. Rihanna. Dr. Braveheart's best friend was Dr. Mark Ryan. Both of them are each other's best friends from their medical school years, through internship and residency. Their relationship continued and grew stronger as they got older. Dr. Tad Braveheart was the foremost neurosurgeon in the state and one of the richest men in the world. Dr. Mark Ryan was a gynecologist who was also rich, but not as rich as Dr. Braveheart. Dr. Mark Ryan believed the vagina held the mystery of the universe. He worshipped vaginas as gods. He was known in college as Olive, the one who can suck a vagina dry. He believed that the vagina is the key for communicating with extraterrestrial beings. Please, let him come into my office, replied Dr. Braveheart. Dr. Braveheart's office was walled with concrete. It looked like a pornography room with dim lights. When the room was viewed from the entrance door, it was square-shaped. Hanging on the wall to the left of the entrance door were 3 pictures of different sex position he took with his clients. The bed was huge with a canopy. Hanging on the wall to the right of the entrance door was a huge picture of a vagina, and below it was a flat and round table decorated with knives. The centerpiece of the office was Dr. Braveheart's executive-sized desk. Ms. Rihanna exited Dr. Braveheart's office and closed the door behind her. A few minutes later, there was a knock on Dr. Braveheart's office door again. Come in, answered Dr. Braveheart. Dr. Braveheart's office polished wooden doorknob was turned and Dr. Mark Ryan entered. Dr. Mark Ryan stood in front of the entrance door and greets Dr. Braveheart. Good morning, sir. Dr. Mark Ryan is dressed in a full white long sleeve shirt which was tucked into his black pants. His elegant Indian hair was straight and shined with hair chemicals. His face was slim with prominent cheekbones. His neck was tall and slender. His body was slim and complemented his brown complexion. He wore brown leather shoes which matched his brown belt. Dr. Braveheart stood up from his seated position, walked over to Dr. Ryan and greeted him with a handshake. Good morning, Dr. Mark Ryan, said Dr. Braveheart. How are you doing this morning? They shook each other's hands. I am great, Dr. Ryan replied. Also, I am happy. For today, patients are 2 of Hollywood top female porn stars and 2 billionaires' wives. Also, I am very happy for the day ahead, replied Dr. Braveheart, and then he pointed to a chair in front of his executive desk and said, "Please make yourself comfortable by having a seat." Dr. Mark Ryan walked over to the executive desk and sat on the seat that Dr. Braveheart pointed him to sit. Dr. Braveheart sat on his wheeled leather chair and snuggled himself comfortably. Dr. Braveheart's executive desk was the only thing separating them. I can't wait for my first client. I had my morning protein shake. I exercise and I took my multivitamin, replied Dr. Braveheart. Dr. Mark Ryan looked at Dr. Braveheart with serious, but respectably stare and said, "Dr. Braveheart, I would like to discuss with you about expanding our business to include men. It is a big market for men who are frustrated and need a sexual release." Dr. Braveheart stared back at Dr. Mark Ryan in a respectable manner and said, "No. Having a clinic for men to release their sexual frustration is similar to a whorehouse. What we do here is special. Women make an appointment, we listen to their complaints, and then we give them an STI to carry to their partner. Our business is total revenge. We will occasionally pleasure them sexually if needed." "I understand," said Dr. Mark Ryan, "and you are right. Last week Monday, I had a movie star named Charlize. She called our office for an urgent appointment. She wanted to see one of us that same day. I took the call and made an appointment for the evening." "Was she released from her frustration?" asked Dr. Braveheart. "Oh, yes. I released all her stress in her visit." Dr. Braveheart stood up, walked over to the liquor table at the corner of his office. He poured himself a glass full of Johnny Walker Black Label and poured a glass full for Dr. Mark Ryan. He walked over to Dr. Mark Ryan and handed him the full glass of Johnny Walker and then went back to sit on his wheeled leather chair behind his executive desk. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a golden box. He rested the golden box on the desk and then pulled out a black gun from another drawer. He opened the golden box and pulled out a cigar. He then pointed the back gun at Dr. Mark Ryan and asked, "Would you like a Cuban cigar?" "Yes, I would love to have one," replied Dr. Mark Ryan.
Yes, and then
Dr.
we'll check.
Braveheart handed Dr. Mark Ryan a Cuban cigar and placed one into his mouth. Dr. Mark Ryan took the cigar and placed it immediately into his mouth. Dr. Braveheart pointed the gun at Dr. Mark Ryan and squeezed the gun trigger. A blue flame emitted from the front. He then used the flame to light Dr. Mark Ryan's cigar and then his own. Both Dr. Braveheart and Dr. Mark Ryan puffed smoke in the air. "Tell me the details of her visit," said Dr. Braveheart. "Whose visit?" asked Dr. Mark Ryan, Charlize.
If it's more than
"Yes,"
8,
replied Dr. Braveheart.
you can. If it's less than 8,
Dr.
you
Mark
can
Ryan pulled out his smartphone from his pocket. He made a few clicks and swipes and said, "I got her notes." Dr. Mark Ryan read his note. "Last Monday at 8 a.m., Charlize called our receptionist with an emergency. She had no sex for 6 months and she started to become frustrated. She followed her boyfriend and found he was cheating on her. Our receptionist called me to make an appointment. Immediately, I made the appointment for the evening at 5 p.m. I was at the helicopter pad at 5 p.m. waiting for her to fly in. Like clockwork, she flew in wearing a black armless spandex dress that leveled at her knees.
Hello?
Her hair was styled in a pixie cut similar to Brie Larson hairstyle in Avenger Endgame and colored the same also. Her eyebrows were recently plucked and styled in round arches with short ends. Her thighs were recently shaved and her shoes were ankle-strap gladiator sandals. Picture showing Dr. Mark Ryan client, Ms. Charlize. I led her from the helicopter pad to the elevator and into the back of the clinic in the delivery area. I called Nurse Bliss to assist her. Nurse Bliss did the necessary blood tests to make sure she is HIV/AIDS, syphilis, and herpes negative, and then Nurse Bliss sent her into my office. Dr. Mark Ryan took a pause. He pulled a deep breath from his cigar and a mouthful of liquor from his glass and then
Any medical
continued.
condition?
Her chief complaint was sexual frustration with her boyfriend. She followed him one evening and found out he was cheating on him with another movie star.
Surgery of any
Also,
kind?
she is not
Any
satisfied with his
allergies to
performance
any
in bed.
medication?
Her boyfriend suffers from hypertension. His medications included carvedilol 6.25 milligrams by mouth twice daily and losartan 50 milligrams by mouth once daily.
Yeah.
Due to his medical condition and medications, he suffered from erectile dysfunction and was prescribed Viagra.
No,
She
that's
wanted
not
revenge
nothing.
and a strong sexual release. She
She
asked for the special. The special, you said? Dr. Braveheart interrupted Dr. Mark Ryan with his question as he rocked back and forth in his wheeled leather chair. Yes, the special, replied Dr. Mark Ryan. I never had someone requested the special. It was my first time, but I was ready and excited. Chapter number 2. The Patients.
You complained to any pain before today?
Yes.
Dr. Braveheart and Dr. Mark Ryan took a deep breath, and then they took a drink of the Johnny Walker Black label that was in their
Can I
glasses.
have this?
Dr. Mark Ryan continued his notes. I asked her, "Are you sure you want the special?"
This is
Her
an-
immediate words were, "Give it to me hard, baby." I called the receptionist, and then I called Nurse Bliss into the room to witness the singing of the consent horns. After she signed, I told Nurse Bliss to bring a vial of syphilis, which Nurse brought immediately. I placed Ms. Charlize on my gynecologist's bed, handcuffed her hands on the bed handles. I opened her legs and inserted the speculum. I break the viral of live syphilis and used a 10mm syringe to suck the solution out of the viral and into the syringe. With her vagina opened with the speculum, I inserted the solution into her vagina. I said, "Congratulations, you have syphilis, and that is the special." I uncuffed her hands and took her off the bed and told her to go have sex with her boyfriend and return the day after for the treatment. She asked me, "Would this work?" I replied, "Our special is guaranteed to work." He has hypertension and on multiple medications which inhibit his immune system. Therefore, he will have a severe form of STI. You don't need to worry, for we will treat you to prevent the disease. She looked at me and said, "I haven't had sex in months. I would love if you can pleasure me." The office was silent. Dr. Braveheart took a drink from his half glass of Johnny Walker Black label. Then he asked Dr. Mark Ryan, "What happened next? Did you pleasure her?" Dr. Mark Ryan took a big pull from his lit cigar and puffed a mouthful of smoke in the air and said, "Oh, I caressed her cervix with my 6 inches Indian penis." "Give me the details," requested Dr. Braveheart as he took big pull from his cigar. Dr. Mark Ryan snuggled himself more comfortable in the chair opposite Dr. Braveheart and said, "I took her to the gynecologist bed and set her body in a dorsal lithotomy position. I removed her black laces panty. Her vagina was completely exposed and shaved smooth and her labia majora was pink as peach. I kneeled in front of her and sucked her vagina. I sucked, then I sucked some more, and then I licked her vagina like a hungry dog. I then used my right hand's middle and index fingers and spread her labia minora apart and sucked her clitoris. Her vaginal juice tasted like fresh milk. While I held her labias apart with my right hand's index and middle fingers, I inserted my left hand's middle finger deep into her vagina. I performed a pumping motion with my finger while I sucked her clitoris. She couldn't bear the pleasure. She screamed, "I am going to go come," and she then broke. I stood up between her legs, dropped my pants and boxer to my ankle, and plunged my 6 inches Indian penis deep into her vagina. I plunged in and out, then in and out again. I plugged in and out for the last time, and then I break on her mons pubis. Picture showing Dr. Mark Ryan and Ms. Charlize, with Ms. Charlize lying on Dr. Mark Ryan gynecologist's bed.
You have to stretch it and then it
The office room was silent again. Dr. Braveheart stared at Dr. Mark Ryan and said, "Great story. So, you have syphilis?" "I always have syphilis," replied Dr. Mark Ryan. "They called it Cupid disease in the olden days." The room was quiet and there was a knock on the door. It was Nurse Bliss. Come in, responded Dr. Braveheart. Dr. Braveheart's office door doorknob turned and Nurse Bliss entered. Dr. Braveheart, Dr. Mark Ryan, your 8 a.m. appointments are here, said Nurse Bliss as she looked at Dr. Braveheart and stared at Dr. Mark Ryan. Who are here? Asked Dr. Braveheart. Abella Dagger and Valentina Neepy, replied Nurse Bliss. What about the other two patients? Asked Dr. Braveheart. They canceled their appointments, replied Nurse Bliss. Okay, do the HIV/AIDS test and screen them for herpes and syphilis, said Dr. Mark Ryan to Nurse Bliss. Nurse Bliss exited the office and closed the door. Which one do you want to see? Asked Dr. Braveheart. I will see Valentina, replied Dr. Mark Ryan, and you will see Abella. Okay, replied Dr. Braveheart. Dr. Mark Ryan stood up from his seated position and walked to the office door. He turned around and looked at Dr. Braveheart and said, I have something to tell you, but after I finish with Ms. Valentina. What is it? Asked Dr. Braveheart curiously while seated comfortably in his wheeled leather chain behind his executive desk. I will tell you after my appointment with Ms. Valentina, replied Dr. Mark Ryan. Is it something I should worry about? Asked Dr. Braveheart. Then said, because I'm scared you will tell me something like you have HIV or something. It's nothing like that, replied Dr. Mark Ryan. The only disease I got is syphilis and nothing else. Dr. Mark Ryan turned Dr. Braveheart's office door doorknob and opened his office door. He exited the office and closed the door behind him, leaving Dr. Braveheart in his office and seated in his wheeled leather chair. Dr. Braveheart picked up the office telephone handset and dialed his receptionist. Hello, Ms. Rihanna. Please send in Ms. Abella as soon as she has been screened by Nurse Bliss. Dr. Braveheart rested the office telephone handset back on the telephone switch lock. He snuggled himself comfortably in his wheeled leather chair, took a deep breath, and then rocked back and forth. He closed his eyes and thought about the recent conversation with Dr. Mark Ryan. I wonder what Dr. Mark Ryan wanted to tell me, he asked himself and then answered himself, I can't think of anything. A few minutes passed and Dr. Braveheart still thinking about the conversation with Dr. Mark Ryan. There was knock on his office door. Come in, shouted Dr. Braveheart. The office door doorknob turned and Nurse Bliss entered. She said, Ms. Abella is ready. Should I send her in now? Yes, replied Dr. Braveheart. Dr. Braveheart stood up from his seated position. He ironed his white silk shirt with his hands and unmashed his black dress pants with the palm of his hands. He smoothed his young face and cleared his throat. He then combed his long, slightly curled Indian hair with his sprawled fingers of his right hand. He sat down and snuggled himself comfortably in his wheeled leather chair. There was a knock on his office door. Come in, responded Dr. Braveheart. His office door doorknob turned and Ms. Abella entered. She closed the door, walked a few feet, and then stood in front of Dr. Braveheart's executive desk. Dr. Braveheart smiled and examined her from her head to her toes. She was beautiful, fair with long blonde hair. Her hair was loose and flew around her head and upper thorax freely. Her eyebrows were neatly plucked and designed in a high arch with long tapered ends. Her eyelashes were long and provocative. Her face slim and dressed with pink makeup. Her lips polished gold and matched her gold earrings. She wore a black mini leather dress, which exposed her shoulder, cleavage, and upper thighs and legs. Her breasts were huge and her nipples printed through her fine-line plunge bustier brassiere. Her umbilicus was exposed through an intentional hole in the middle of her dress. Her upper thighs were recently shaved and smooth. Her legs were also recently shaved and appeared smooth. She wore a black T-strap high-heel shoes with gold decorations. Her side bag was leather and branded Louis Vuitton. Picture showing Ms. Abella dressed in a skin-tight leather dress. Come and have a seat, requested Dr. Braveheart. Ms. Abella walked seductively to the chair opposite Dr. Braveheart and in front of his executive desk. She hung her side bag on the chair ear, and then she pulled the chair using her right hand to give her room to sit. After she pulled the chair from the top rail, she walked around to the front. She sat and crossed her legs. Dr. Braveheart noticed her red panty when she crossed her legs to sit. Hello, Isabella. My name is Dr. Tad Braveheart. How can I help you today? Hello, Dr. Braveheart. You are very young and sexy to be a doctor. However, as you already know, my name is Isabella. I am a porn star. I need your help, she said with a straight face. Okay, replied Dr. Braveheart. Please feel comfortable. Can I get you something to drink or smoke? No, responded Isabella. Please tell me your story, requested Dr. Braveheart. Isabella took a deep breath and said, long story short. I got fucked in the asshole too rough by a coworker. I told him not to fuck me rough in the asshole, but he did it anyways. He ripped my asshole open. I had to get 10 stitches. The doctor recommended that I stop anal sex permanently because my anal sphincter was damaged severely. I make my living doing anal sex and now I can't perform because I am scared for my asshole. I want revenge for what he did to me. So, I asked around and received your clinic information from Selena. She said you help her out when she had an issue with her boyfriend. I want what you gave her. I see her boyfriend on television and his mind is WK. The rumor is Selena gave him a STD that infected his brain. I want that disease to give to the coworker who ripped my asshole. The room was silent. Dr. Braveheart looked at Isabella and smiled. He thought of all the nasty things he wanted to do with her. I want to fuck your mouth, breasts, and vagina in that particular order. Hello, Dr. Braveheart. You were silent for a long time. Can I get a response from you? Said Isabella as she interrupted Dr. Braveheart fantasy. I am here. I am thinking which sexually transmitted disease we gave Selena to carry to her boyfriend. Responded Dr. Braveheart. I remember. We gave her syphilis. I don't want syphilis. That is too mild for him. I want something strong and incurable, replied Isabella. The only sexually transmitted disease that has what you are asking for is HIV, replied Dr. Braveheart. How can I give him HIV without I infecting myself? Asked Isabella. Don't worry about the details. If you want the package code name, Deadly Sin, it's available, replied Dr. Braveheart. It is very costly though. How much? Asked Bella. For the package, 50,000 US dollars cash. There is no refund, replied Dr. Braveheart. Okay, I am interested, but first tell me about the package code name. Deadly Sin? Asked Isabella, and they check us for HIV before we fuck. How are you going to cheat the results? Don't worry about it. For your money's worth, we will deliver on the package, replied Dr. Braveheart. Okay, I want the package, said Isabella. Great choice, replied Dr. Braveheart. Please make yourself comfortable, and I will have my receptionist print the consent forms and the nurse prepare the blood. Dr. Braveheart picked up his desk phone handset and called his receptionist. Prepare the consent forms for the package, Deadly Sin, and inform the nurse to prepare the HIV blood and bring it into my office ASAP. Dr. Braveheart closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He opened his eyes, looked Isabella straight in her big brown eyes and said, Okay, Isabella, package code name. Deadly Sin involves me giving you a vial of HIV-rich blood. The vial contains 5 milliliters of blood. The blood was taken from a poorly controlled AIDS victim. The victim viral load was over 100,000 copies. That means it is potent. You are going to swab your vagina with the blood 5 minutes before sex. Any question as yet? Yes. If I swab my vagina with HIV blood, wouldn't I get infected as well? Asked Isabella. Good question, said Dr. Braveheart. The answer is no. You are going to be taking ARVs. What are ARVs? Asked Isabella. ARV means antiretroviral. They are medications which are widely used to prevent HIV, replied Dr. Braveheart. We prescribed it to HIV-negative homosexuals whose partners are HIV positive, but they don't want to use a condoms. How safe is this? Asked Isabella. Dr. Braveheart relaxed in his wheeled leather chair and replied, It's 100% safe and effective. You will start the ARVs. Anthracidabine and tenofovir disoproxil fumarate, sold under the brand name Truvada, and anthracidabine and tenofovir alafenamide, sold under the brand name Descovy. You will take 1 tablet of Truveda and tablet of Destiny per day for 20 days.
Can I
You will need to take the medication diamond hydrate and nausea and vomiting, which are side effects of the ARVs. You will start the ARVs 5 days before sexual intercourse.
The doctor
As for the screen test that your work requires, it will always show negative. All you need a one-night stand with your coworker. Can you convince him to have a one-night stand? Oh, yes. I can convince him to do anything, replied Isabella. What about me? Can I convince you to have sex with me? Asked Dr. Braveheart as he stared into Isabella's face. Can you fuck? Replied Isabella as she stared back at Dr. Braveheart's face. I will fuck you like Adam fucked Eve after she made him sin, said Dr. Braveheart. Business before pleasure, replied Isabella. You are right, said Dr. Braveheart. Dr. Braveheart picked up his office phone handset and dialed his receptionist. Hello, Ms. Rihanna. Please bring Isabella package. The room was silent. Isabella made herself more comfortable in the chair and requested a drink. What kind of alcohol you have to serve me? I have the best. Johnny Walker Black Label, replied Dr. Braveheart. Oh, my favorite, replied Isabella. Dr. Braveheart stood up from his wheeled leather chair and walked over to the table in the corner of the office and poured a glass full of Johnny Walker Black Label for himself and one for Isabella. He walked over to Isabella and handed her the glass. He went and sat in his wheeled leather chair. Before we drink, let's finish part of our business, said Dr. Braveheart. You mean the money? Asked Isabella. Yes, replied Dr. Braveheart. Isabella uncrossed her legs and stood up. Dr. Braveheart noticed her red panty again when she uncrossed her legs. She turned around and unhooked her bag from the chair seat. She turned back around and sat down. She opened her Louis Vuitton handbag and pulled out $50,000 and rested it on Dr. Braveheart's desk. There was a knock on the door. Come in, answered Dr. Braveheart. The office doorknob turned and Nurse Bliss entered and Ms. Rihanna followed behind her. Nurse Bliss handed Dr. Braveheart a biohazard bag containing a vial of 5 milliliters of blood and left the office. Ms. Rihanna walked over to Dr. Braveheart's side of his executive desk and handed Isabella the deadly sin consent forms. Isabella signed the consent forms and gave it back to Ms. Rihanna. Ms. Rihanna smiled at Isabella as she received the consent forms back from Isabella. Ms. Rihanna left the office and closed the office door behind her. Now let's end our business, said Dr. Braveheart. Dr. Braveheart gave Isabella the biohazard bag containing the 5 milliliter of HIV-rich blood. Isabella took the biohazard bag and placed it in her Louis Vuitton handbag. Remember to keep the blood in the fridge until you are ready to use it, said Dr. Braveheart. I know, replied Isabella, and now for our last business. You want to fuck me? The fee is $50,000. Agree, replied Dr. Braveheart. You agree without any negotiation, said Isabella as she uncrossed her legs and opened her tights. Dr. Braveheart stared at her red panty. Dr. Braveheart pushed the $50,000 back to Isabella. She took the money and placed it in her Louis Vuitton handbag. Let's fuck, said Dr. Braveheart. Dr. Braveheart stood up from his seated position. He walked over to Isabella. She took her bag.
The last figure 30 something.
34 divided by 2.2, 15.
This
300. So the antibiotic is 300 milligrams twice a day for 1 week. And for the pain, even Panadol or Cetamol, you can take 150 milligrams 3 times a day for 1 week. And you're going to take the antibiotic cream, Fusidin H.
And that fit to pull it back down.
Yeah. Cream, apply the affected area, BB. Alright? Check it out.
I got paid.
watch him, you know, there's needles and so on there, miss.
Cushing.
Come, stay with mommy.
Cushing is just all over the place, so.
You weren't shy when you came in, how you turned so brave?
Starts at Sunday. Sunday, Monday.
There you go.
Okay. Get it on Monday.
And speak to the pediatric surgeon. Alright, the referral. Mm-hmm.
Bye, doctor.
Bye-bye.
The brother still old. I'm a robot. Yeah. I'm elastic. Yeah. GMI. Already. Giramos, giramos, giramos,
So Dr. Badal.
He can go to school tomorrow.
I wouldn't advise you to go let him go to school as yet. Dr. Badal. Send me his contact. Just
You know you have to put them back, right?
Alright, so the number is 876-979-8841. There you go. Alright? You're welcome. Now.
Bye, doctor.
Take this back to them.
Bye, doctor.
Bye-bye.
No, I'm not.
You said you can't go to school tomorrow.
I will not advise because you don't want him to get worse. You don't want it to get worse. And